U.S. President Donald Trump announced Sunday that nobody was getting off the hook for unfair trade balances and tariff barriers, which other countries have used against the United States. To talk more about this is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, the Trump administration announced Friday that it was exempting imported smartphones, laptops, and other electronics from reciprocal tariffs. But then on Sunday, Trump wanted to clear a few things up. What did he say?
I saw a meme that perfectly captured this back and forth. It was tax on, tax off. And funny, obviously, um, kind of a reference to the Karate Kid and
Mhm.
the taxes and the announcements and the markets responding to this back and forth. Why would Donald Trump say one thing and then take a pause and then say another thing and then take it back? In this case, as you stated, he said that those very important sectors are off the hook for tariffs, but then took it back and said, you know what? No one's off the hook for tariffs. And he doubled down on China really being the target here in terms of paying their fair share and evening the playing field and really having nothing being exempt. Look, as the days and weeks go on, we will be able to iron this out a bit more. If I were, Donald Trump's advisors, I would perhaps try. Maybe they would succeed and maybe not, to advise him to really not come out with any statements until they have it all ironed out, only because the markets are responding in such a dramatic way. And maybe that's by design to show the power that the United States has and show the power that the tariffs have. And that is really what he's trying to do, to say, look, this is the United States. If you want to play with us, you got to play fair. And that's really the main goal here. But whether or not this will pan out the way that he envisions it, the way that he has designed it, we shall see.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent weighed in on America's tariff negotiations with other countries. Now, when he appeared on Kudlow last week, he says up to 70 nations want to negotiate over Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, so again, being the goal that we bring nations to the United States to have a discussion so that we can, again, level the playing field, make things fair. And the message from the Trump White House isn't that we don't want to play; it's that we want you to play with us and play fairly. So that is a positive sign in the eyes of the Trump White House. That look, here we are. We got countries to line up and want to have a discussion with us, and why not? I mean, from the point of view of global politics, and I'm not just talking about an advantage for the United States. If we want everyone to prosper, well, then why not do a reset where things fall in line, and the United States will have a more robust and more confident trading scenarios and paradigms where these countries will come and have a discussion and therefore walk away with, okay, here's the deal. So we're hoping that that's what happens. We hope that everyone falls in line and then they come to agreements and concessions that will benefit everyone globally, and that hopefully is the goal.
Canadian steelmaker Algoma says Trump's tariffs are hitting the wrong target. The company's CEO, Michael Garcia, said the U.S. should stop treating Canada as a trade threat and instead focus on nations engaged in dumping cheap steel in North America, which includes Canada. What are your
Right.
thoughts?
Right. I mean, it's an interesting, argument to be made. Look, the steel industry in Canada is saying we're the ones who are providing the steel. We're the ones who are suffering also from China dumping cheap steel here. So they're affecting our competition. We are trying to just do the right work, and we're the ones now being targeted by tariffs. So it's a fair argument to be made. The argument that obviously the White House is making, that Trump is making, is that no, this is everyone across the board will be playing fairly, including China. So if you're saying that China is the main culprit, well, we're after them too. We're trying to get them to play fair too. Again, it will take time before any of the dust settles. I am listening to both of these arguments on both sides daily. And look, everyone makes a decent argument here, but if the goal across the board is to have a more robust, a better, a stronger, more prosperous global economy, let's hope that we get there. And this does not just disrupt, but actually just, reorganizes and makes things fair the way that Trump has always envisioned. This is something that he has been campaigning on and talking about even before he had any aspirations of becoming the US president. This is what he always talked about, that the United States gets taken advantage of, that we pay too much money, that the ratio is just not fair when whether it's talking about the UN or NATO or paying our fair share globally in terms of tariffs we're being taken advantage of. So again, that's his goal. That's what where the United States is coming from. Now, we hope that we can, play nicely with our northern and southern neighbors, because that's just a pack that will always stay together. And that we hope that in the aftermath, everyone will benefit from all of this.
Switching gears now, where are we at with the war in Gaza? Because I hear Hamas says they are prepared for a serious hostage release. What are the details?
Yeah, we don't know. We are hoping. Let's say, look, over the weekend they released a video of the United States citizen who's being kept hostage. We are a year and a half into this war. The fact that there are still hostages is just crazy. It's crazy. So I don't know if there's any good news to ever be had in this war, because to talk about a terror organization that has a U.S. citizen hostage for a year and a half in the most horrific conditions, in tunnels, and being starved and being raped and being beaten, and they've lost limbs and they've lost their lives. We have dead hostages that they haven't been, the families have not retrieved the bodies to have a proper burial.
Hmm.
There's so much in this war, but it continues. Now the latest proposal is to release 9 or 10 hostages. There remains 59 hostages that are thought to be alive. Perhaps, if we can hope, at least half of them are alive. That's always been the ratio and always been the statistic given in this war. But again, the fact that we're going back to the negotiating table, the fact that Donald Trump has been in office for about 3 months now, trying to make this happen with his envoy Steve Witkoff, who's being spread pretty thin because he's also handling the Iran nuclear deal portfolio. He's handling the Ukraine-Russia ceasefire, and now he's obviously handling the hostage talks and ceasefire talks as well. So we're hoping to see some sort of about face after 18 months of this war, but let's see what happens in this latest round.
Well, hopefully. And I also hear more and more Gazans are speaking out against Hamas, recognizing the organization as the instigators of the conflict. Tell me more.
Yeah, the Gazans here and there over the last, decade have tried to stand up here and there. It's not a huge movement. We've always said, where are the Gazan voices? Where are the Palestinians who say, you know what, I saw one of the hostages down the street, I'm going to blow the whistle here. But instead, we're hearing stories about Palestinian families harboring a lot of the hostages, taking them into their homes and playing along. So this actually is a story of hope, of optimism, where you can say, okay, there are obviously the main issue with the Palestinian people is leadership, the fact that they're being led by a terror organization. So yes, when they come out onto the streets, but what will happen next? Maybe the reason that they're not speaking up, or more of them are not speaking up, is because of the very harsh consequences when you're dealing with a terror organization. So yes, while we do have those Palestinians who come to the hostage releases and are cheering for Hamas and wearing Hamas gear and are actually, pledging allegiance to Hamas, a terror organization, we also have those who are now on the streets and saying, we want to be free from terror. We want to be free from the reins of Hamas, and we want actual leadership to take us forward. So this is a very promising little glimmer of light in all of this, but you just don't have A, the masses, and B, you don't have the support. They will, quash these protests in whatever way possible, and that means taking lives, arresting, beating, and really sending these protesters home.
And we just had Palm Sunday yesterday, and the celebrations in the Ukrainian city of Sumy became an absolute tragedy as Russian missiles struck and killed over 30 civilians. Now, Russian and Ukrainian diplomats are blaming each other for violating a tentative ceasefire. What can you tell us about this?
It was just horrific. This story really made its rounds yesterday, and I know that there has been bloodshed for so long in Ukraine with the Russian attacks coming in almost daily. But this, in particular, on Palm Sunday, in a community where they were churchgoers, and to have such a bloodbath created in the middle of trying to come up with a ceasefire and trying to end this war. I mean, Russia is speaking louder with its actions than with its words. I mean, where is Putin on all of this? It's Marco Rubio just about a week ago called Putin out and said, we're not going to have any more talks about having talks. If you are serious about a ceasefire, then we need to see the actions. And look, if this is the action that he's showing, well, it doesn't really bode well for the future of ceasefires and any hopes of ending this war anytime soon. So I do think that there will be consequences for this. I do think that the United States will, if they do want to be at the helm of the ceasefires here and ending this war, well, they will have to actually up the ante to get Russia to take this more seriously and to really understand that there have to be consequences to these types of actions. The Ukrainians obviously now feeling very worried and apprehensive about not having as much U.S. support, about not having global support in continuing this war. And and that's an argument also. To what end? To what end do we continue this war? So we shall see what the narrative will be coming from the White House this week.
Now, back on U.S. soil, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home was attacked and set ablaze with Molotov cocktails early Sunday morning. The man who allegedly did this turned himself into state police. What more can you tell us about this?
Yeah, this horrific attack on his residence. Thank God nobody was hurt. But if you look at the damage, it was meant to hurt. Meant to create damage and meant to terrorize. The suspect, who has been taken into custody on charges of attempted murder, and arson, attempted and on terrorism. I mean, there's so many different charges that are being brought against him, and thankfully that he isn't in custody. But he was intending to hurt the governor. He actually went in with a hammer, saying, if I do come face to face with him, I want to beat him with a hammer. So, Josh Shapiro obviously is a very vocal Democrat, but also a very vocal Jew. He just wrapped up the first night of Passover, and this was what authorities believe a very targeted, symbolic hate crime that was meant to target him on that first night of Passover. But horrific story, and really speaks to the very serious anti-Semitism problem that we have growing in the United States, not just in the universities, but as we see from this story, it's happening everywhere.
Very sad. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Naveen.